Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like when I called my dad post my breakup, and I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm too much. Like that's what I'm referring to. Is
Okay.
like, am I too strong? Am I too self-sufficient? And I go to therapy.
Shout out to therapy.
Yeah,
We love therapy.
therapy's awesome.
We love therapy.
That's why I'm so well adjusted.
One question I would ask you, because you're talking about the strong woman, and this makes me go back to like the conversation we were talking earlier about the independence. Do you think that there's a point where becoming strong for women is to a fault?
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like when I called my dad post my breakup, and I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm too much. Like that's what I'm referring to. Is
Okay.
like, am I too strong? Am I too self-sufficient? And I go to therapy.
Shout out to therapy.
Yeah,
We love therapy.
therapy's awesome.
We love therapy.
That's why I'm so well adjusted. No, my therapist, I was explaining that to her. I was like, I called my dad, and I just think, looking back at that conversation, I'm like, was I having like a psychotic break? Like, why did I ask him, like, am I too much? I know I'm not too much. Like, I know I'm good. I'm good. But she said, she's like, I do think sometimes, especially with Latina women, especially with strong women and young women like you, people feel that ambition is something they have to tame.
Yep.
And I do think that if it was a man we were talking to, we would never think you can be too strong to a fault. So I do think like the verbiage, and remember, strength is applied differently to men and women.
No, I agree.
So
I
I
agree.
think strength in men is like, yes, he's strong, he's firm, he's stable, he's this, he's that. Strength in women is like, she's hard to work with. She's difficult. She's stubborn.
Could be.
And I think the perception of what is strength in women.
I could see that. One thing, and this is something I hear people talk about that I think this is where I get interesting in the concept. And I'm gonna focus this, not to put it on one ethnic group over another, but I'm gonna focus this on Black women first, because this is a group I know very, very well. I think a lot of Latino women do fall into this category too, because they're not that far behind. Again, this is my impression. You can let me know what you think.
Oh, I will.
In my experience, when you talk about strength, I think there's a lot of conditions and a lot of reasons why they feel like women need to be so strong. For example, a lot of men and women are raised in single parent households, particularly in the Black community. So I think a lot of them, they're seeing an abundance of mom had to do everything. And she was so strong. That's the characteristic that gets qualified onto that experience. But there's a reason why she had to do so much. And my thought process as a therapist is perhaps the reason why she had to work so hard, there might have been qualities and attributes about her that she acquired, maybe seeing her mother potentially from another generation and how she carried herself. So she impressed that on her daughter. So then when she had children, she's like saying the same thing. So what does that ultimately yield? An unwillingness or extreme difficulty in working with a man. Because if she's always thinking about, I got to be so strong and I have to do everything, then I mentioned, because I remember what you said earlier, where do we have the space for the man then to be in that life? Where do we have that room where he's going to be able to add value into that woman's life if she feels like, I have to be the superwoman because that's what I saw, that's the expectation, those are the norms. So then where becomes that opportunity to allow that man into that space to actually work with you? Like I said earlier, life is already hard. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you think you are. Life is not meant to be dealt with on your own. Everybody deserves to have a partner, because if you try to go through life on your own, there's going to be moments where you're not going to be able to do it on your own. Everybody's going to need help at some point, whether it be family, whether it be friends, if you have a partner or spouse, whatever the case may be. So I think about that not just from a cultural or even a socioeconomic level, because some of them had to be so strong because they were relying on one income, particularly with multiple children. So there's a lot of financial strain on the family. But from the kids' perspective, they're looking at mom like, damn, she was so strong. Like, she made sure that she cooked for us and she cleaned for us and she made sure we had good education. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that perception, except for the fact that it's missing the fact that there's a reason why she had to do all of those things. Maybe if we don't put people in those situations, meaning we can return to 2-parent households more often than not. I'm not saying it's always going to be this case. There's no utopia here.
Sorry,
Right?
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
cut off
Go ahead.
everyone. But I do want to say one thing you didn't acknowledge either in that is that the strength can also come from like families with histories of abuse. Like I
Sure.
know in my grandmother's instance, it was abuse that led to her needing to be strong.
Agreed.
And I
Agreed.
think when you there's no strength to a fault when you're trying to survive. And I think a
Right.
lot of the time, women, we live in a perpetual mode of survival.
And I appreciate that you said that.
Yeah, because we can't please people, right? You're too smart, you're too independent, or you're too dumb, or you're too pretty, or you're too much, or you're too little.
Yeah.
See, and I like that you said that. See, I don't believe in, I call that black and white thinking. I don't believe in that. I believe in the gray. The gray is
Right.
everything in between.
Right.
What I can tell you, what I know from the experiences I have with a lot of people is a lot of people talk in extremes.
Yeah.
It is this or is that. I love men, I hate men. Men are great, men are dogs. Women are this, women are trash. Like that's how people talk.
Yeah.
They don't talk in the middle. So even think about what you said, right? You said, let's say my grandma got abused. I actually love this example because the young lady who was sitting there before, she used this example. She was Colombian. She said, my grandma and my tia told me men are dogs, never trust them. We will always have your back, hide money under the bed. She literally taught her that from when she was young.
Bed thing too. That's
Okay, good.
crazy.
Okay, good.
International.
There you go, right? So,
but no,
so different country. But my point is, what I told her was, listen, think about this, okay? Because people don't think about the traumatic impact that puts on a young person. And you got to understand, when you don't have that personal lived experience to attribute that to, that's passing on what we call secondary traumatization onto that person. You don't even have that lived experience. That's like prejudice. You watch something on TV and you say, these people are like this. You don't know that to be true, but you're holding it as an absolute truth. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So you're taking what grandma said and you're saying, and again, not you, the young woman
Right,
before.
general you.
I'm saying she was like, oh yeah, I can't trust men. So what happened when we were having that discussion? She was like, well, I want to open up and I want to trust them, but I was always taught I can't trust them. And I said, don't you understand how that's a contradictory statement? So you can't believe both of those things at the same time, or you're never going to be able to make it work with a man.
Right. And also like I would just like to like respond to that a lot of my meaningful relationships in life have been with men. Like I am not one of those people that's like men suck, because men
Yeah.
bring a lot of value to your life. Like I
like to think so.
I talk about my relationship with my dad all the time. Like
Yeah.
I have very close male friends that know me very intimately. So I've never been exclusive to this idea that men suck, because men bring value just as women bring value, you know?
Sure,
like
absolutely.
And I do think that, a lot of people hear these opinions I have and how they're formed and all these things, and they think like, oh, you're so ambitious, you must not want kids. And I've had men say that to me. And I've had men say to me, you would not make a good mother because of how ambitious you are.
That's
That I would say that's an assumption.
Yeah, definitely.
That-
I'm
that-
not saying that all men think that way.
No, but it's a fair
there,
point.
there
It's a fair
are
point.
men who are comfortable expressing that to someone who's a relative stranger to them, especially once you get to know me, I do want kids. I do actually only want to be married once, because I do think like being a child of divorce, you kind of understand like marriage can last, with the right kind of commitment and the right kind of people and elements and all these
Absolutely.
things. So I don't think that we need to be like this doomsday generation where like men suck and women suck and everyone sucks. It's like, no, things
Yeah.
can actually be really beautiful if we give them the space to bloom.
I agree.
And I think we all need to learn to respect what we all bring to the table, because there's so many things that I have learned from the men in my life that I would not be who I am without the influence of men.
Yeah.
So this is not all the women. Obviously,
Sure.
like I'm a feminist girly. Yes, let me like hang out with the girls. But at the same time, like you always need the diverse perspective to get the full picture.
No, I agree.